Hello, Leo, and welcome to your reading. This is Bright Soul Collective Tarot. My name is Laura, and these will be your intuitive insights and advice for the month of July 2022. This reading will be for Leo, Sun, Moon, and Rising. So by all means, if you know your major 3 placements, feel free to listen to any and all of the readings that apply, as each one of them may resonate for you differently. And do keep in mind these readings are general in nature. They're meant to apply to a more broad collective of individuals, so not everything that comes through will necessarily make sense for you. Definitely take anything and everything that does resonate for you, however that makes sense for your specific situation, whatever that connects to in your personal circumstances. Keep an open mind to anything that might be helpful as you move through the month, and you can simply leave the rest. So Leo, happy July. I hope June was good to you, and I must wish you all a very happy early birthday, as I guess the last third or so of the month will see us entering into Leo season. We're all in our solar return period right now, which is awesome. So yeah, very much looking forward to seeing what July has in store for you all. I've got your oracle card here. Of course, as always, we will pull some tarot. We'll get you affirmations and a final oracle card to tie everything together. But we will kick off your reading as usual by me sharing my channeled energetic impressions and channeled messages for you, which I sat down to connect with before getting any cards out. So we'll jump right into that. And also, don't mind if you hear equipment in the background. My neighbors are still doing a whole bunch of construction in their backyard, and they've got like a machine that's going back and forth constantly. So yeah, hopefully it's not too distracting, but just so you know. Okay, Leo, so for July, I really like the vibe that I got. So there was some excitement and anticipation. Like I had the feeling of being excited about something. It's like, I don't know quite what it is. I don't know what my reason for being excited is, but you know, it's there, which is may very well be a welcome change. I did get the sense that there has been some heavy energy, and it's kind of like, it kind of feels like the veil is lifting, the weight is lifting, like there's kind of like a change in the air where things are lightening up. And so I got this sense of, you know, even in this anticipation and excitement, it wasn't like a really hyperactive one. It was kind of like calm and peaceful, like finally there's the opportunity to exhale. And they're also, along with that sense of calm and peace, and just kind of like looking forward to something, it's kind of like the sense of like, I really need this, like I needed this, I need this is long overdue, like finally. And it's like maybe you've really needed things to kind of lighten up and to be a little bit more fun and happy. So that's really positive. And the other thing that came through was a sense of like missing someone, and not just missing someone like, you know, in terms of like emotionally and your thoughts and stuff like that, but it's also like I got this sense of like somebody on your mind, somebody that you're missing, and you like look for this person everywhere. So it's like, you know, you could look for their vehicle, or if you see a vehicle that looks like theirs, you're checking to see if it's them, or you're looking for them in the crowd, or, you know, like hoping to run into them or reconnect with them. So I don't know if that makes sense for you, but that's definitely kind of like a sensation that I got. And one last thing before I jump into your channeled messages is I did get the sense that like that rose quartz might be beneficial for you. This is rose quartz here. I love crystals and rocks, and I think they're beautiful, but I'm definitely more of a tarot girl than a crystal girl. So I don't often make recommendations for people to have certain crystals, but it did kind of pop into my mind. Rose quartz might be beneficial for you, particularly, you know, in terms of love, self-love, especially if you're on a healing journey, if you're trying to be gentle with yourself, and also if you're just trying to connect more to that kind of like joyful, like loving energy. So I don't know if you already have rose quartz. You might think about acquiring some. If you do have it, it might be beneficial to put it in a spot where you spend a lot of your time, or maybe move it from room to room. If you have jewelry, it might be worth investing in jewelry, something that you can wear, or even a small stone that you can carry with you, just to kind of help keep you connected to that energy. If you're interested, Just throwing it out there. So your channeled messages, the first message that came through was forged in fire. And so that kind of gave me the image of like the phoenix rising from the ashes. And so what I kind of gathered from that is it's like you may have a lot of situations in your life or even up to date that have felt like really hard, really difficult. There could be like, you know, a lot of major changes that you've been through, maybe major losses. And it's like those situations that it's kind of like everything burns to the ground and unfortunately you burn with it. And you kind of have to pick yourself back up and rebuild, right? And that if you have a lot of those circumstances or you've had a lot of those times where it's like you find yourself picking up the pieces and having to rebuild, doesn't even have to be like in a tangible way. It could just be emotionally, mentally. That can feel really difficult and challenging, especially if you feel like you have more of those experiences than other people or your situation is more difficult. It can be really draining. And it can be really easy to see that as something that maybe makes you like deficient or maybe like, you know, makes you less fortunate. And I don't want to whitewash difficult situations or take away the severity that like can accompany some of those really challenging experiences. But what I will say is that even just recognizing that like if you experience a lot of those things and maybe it's out of your control, I think it's really important to also recognize your strength and try to take an empowering stance on the things that have happened to you or maybe the things that are kind of yet to come, and realize that, yeah, you may have struggled a lot and you may have been through a lot and maybe it feels kind of unfair to kind of always be starting over again, or just when things get to be solid and you think you have things figured out, like maybe something major happens. But it's recognizing that every single time that you pick yourself up and that you kind of like are ascending from these ashes, it's like you're being reborn, right? It's kind of like a cleansing rebirth. It's an opportunity to start fresh, and you learn and grow a lot through all of those struggles, and you're able to be reborn with that information, with that knowledge, to help you do better for yourself. So it can be really challenging, but it can also be really empowering because it gives you a whole lot more insight and a lot more knowledge and a lot more experience to use to rebuild and to advocate for yourself that other individuals that don't have those kinds of experiences might not otherwise connect with. So it can be really challenging and painful, but it can also be like it can kind of lend to our greatest strengths in a way. So yeah, that's just something to keep in mind if that resonates for you. The next message that came through was eviction notice. So this could be a literal eviction notice. Perhaps you're living in a place that's rented, and it might not be that you're served a notice, but it may be that it's time to go. Maybe you've outgrown that place, it no longer serves you. Maybe you've got your eyes set on something else. Perhaps you have a tenant that it's time to evict. But this could be in like a less literal sense and more like energetically. So the idea of like having a space that's occupied and perhaps occupied by the wrong people or the wrong things, and needing to clear that space out so that better can come in. So it might be doing like a little bit of energetic housekeeping. And if you're somebody like on a personal development level that kind of struggles with integrating concepts, it could be helpful to think about the things that no longer serve you, the things that are just kind of cluttering your energy, taking up space, not necessarily helpful. Maybe thinking of those things as like unhelpful tenants. And that you kind of need to serve an energetic eviction notice and get rid of those things to open that space up so that you can welcome something that's going to be more beneficial, more aligned. So it kind of might give you like a visualization, kind of like a framework to work with if you are trying to release some unhelpful thoughts or beliefs or habits, or just like clear out some stagnant old energy. So yeah. The next message that came through for you was me, myself, and I. So you might be spending a lot of time in solitude, in your own energy, perhaps in like self-reflection, getting to know yourself. You may have a great deal of comfort just kind of being in your own space and energy, maybe being a little bit more introverted or in hermit mode. And I would say, to just exercise discretion, obviously, to kind of keep your energy in balance and to trust yourself to know when you need to be in your own energy, you need to be in your own space, and you need to kind of focus that effort and attention on yourself. Make sure you're making the most of those opportunities, and also not entirely disallowing yourself the opportunity to connect with other people or to get out and to have other experiences, because that will also be beneficial for you as well. But there might be a lot more alone time and reflection needed, and that would also make sense because with Leo season approaching, the energy of the solar return starts about 6 weeks before your actual birthday, and I think it lingers a little bit after that as well. And so that's kind of like your personal new year. So a lot of times there are things coming up, things coming to your attention. There are doors needing to be closed, cycles needing to be ended. There can be a lot of stuff surfacing or resurfacing that you might have to kind of work through. So energetically, emotionally, mentally, you might have your hands full and a lot going on, and it might just be needing to take some time to attend to those things so that you can leave anything that's not going to be helpful or beneficial in your personal new year in the past, and you can be ready to step into new energy and make the most out of kind of like a clean slate, have a vision for the year ahead. The next message that came through was favoritism. And so I'm not sure exactly what this means, but the thing that kind of occurred to me is you might need to examine your relationship to the idea of favoritism. Is favoritism something that has impacted you in your life? Perhaps other people showing favoritism, perhaps it's something that you're inclined to do. And just kind of see like if you have any discomfort around it, if there are any triggers around it. Because I do get the sense that there might be a feeling of like unfairness, right? Like perhaps you've been in situations where other people are favored over you consistently, or maybe you feel tempted to play favorites, like in terms of the people or the situations that make you feel more comfortable. I don't know. But I would say like there might be a need to do a little bit of reflection and see how that resonates for you. If there are any triggers, if the idea of favoritism bothers you, and why. And maybe start asking yourself, like, why would you play favorites? Why would you favor someone over someone else? Is it fair? Why would somebody favor you over someone else? And just kind of see, like, what does that say about what's going on under the surface? What are the motives for it? And is it something that's empowering, or is it maybe something that is longing to be healed and released? And finally, your last message that came through was great deal of suffering. So this could be you in terms of this forged in fire, like phoenix rising from the ashes. Perhaps you've been going through a great deal of suffering. Your life has been marked by suffering on many occasions, maybe more so than others. Or it could be somebody close to you that's going through a great deal of suffering and is kind of like working on processing a lot of emotions. But I kind of got the idea that it's like, it could be long-term suffering. It could be periods of like major suffering kind of interspersed throughout life. But it's like the sense of this suffering being lifted or cleared, or it's like no longer, suffering. Like your suffering has ended, or it's lightening, or it's lessening. So it could be coming out of a difficult period and needing to kind of deal with the healing that goes along with that. It could be seeing somebody else who's been struggling coming out of that time. I don't know how that might resonate for you if it does, but I do get the kind of sense that there's like a great deal of empathy for yourself and others. It could just be needing to be really gentle with yourself, practicing a lot of self-care. Just being gentle and allowing this energy to kind of lighten up, not putting too much in the way of expectations on yourself, because healing is not a linear journey by any means. Okay, so we will take a look at your oracle card. So for this month, you have Round and Round. And it's really funny actually, because as I was shuffling this oracle deck to prepare for your reading, this card, I don't think it necessarily jumped out, but I definitely saw it. It caught my eye. I can't get this to stand up. it definitely caught my eye as I was shuffling, and I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if that card comes out for the reading, and then it did. So round and round, this is talking all about the cyclical nature of life and the fact that we are cyclical beings. So we kind of, we go through, so this can be like the cycle of like growth and like death and rebirth, right? So it's like starting something new and then like working and refining and running into challenges and becoming stronger until we get to the point of kind of like mastery, and then taking that experience and that knowledge and wisdom with us, shutting the door on that lesson and being able to step into a new energy on a new path, learn a new lesson, and take the information and the experience from that previous one to help us kind of further refine as we continue to move through those cycles. So it can be that sense of like round and round, but this can also be like the idea of being trapped in repeating cycles. So if there is some kind of repetitive cycle in your life that you find yourself stuck in, it could be kind of a pain in your ass. It might be something a little bit demoralizing, maybe something frustrating. It's recognizing that we have these opportunities to be challenged and to kind of move through these cycles in order to learn and to grow, to gain additional wisdom, insight, and tools to help us along our path. And then at a certain point, it's up to us to kind of choose to see those lessons and choose to do the work to integrate like a new way of being or thinking or doing things, in order to kind of release ourselves from that cycle, leave it in the past, and step into something new. So sometimes we can kind of commit ourselves to repeating stagnant cycles or getting stuck. So anything that's really cyclical, it's like whether it's a similar type of person, like the same kind of shitty friend or shitty partner, or the same kind of challenging work environment or coworkers, or it could be like a cyclical issue with like health, mental health, physical health, diet, fitness, mindset, like it literally could be anything. So if there's something that you have been really like trying to overcome, but you just kind of find yourself going through the same motions over and over again and running into the same problem, it's basically saying that a lot of times, in order to learn our lesson, we will repeat those cycles, and sometimes we can get stuck in them for a period of time. But the idea is that each time that we go through it, each time we experience that similar challenge or energy, we are learning and we're growing. And each time that's presented to us, that challenge is presented, it's another opportunity to kind of integrate a new way of handling it and to practice, changing that approach, changing that behavior, changing that mindset. And so sometimes we need to repeat the cycle in order to kind of integrate and master that energy, in order to fully be able to kind of embrace it, fully learn the lesson, and have that kind of as a tool in our kit moving forward before we can leave that energy in the dust. And then if it were to resurface in the future, we would know not to kind of get drawn back into that cycle, because we have the awareness and the tools to handle it in a way that's going to be beneficial and empowering to us, and we don't have to kind of revert or regress. So it can just be a matter of putting in the work and dealing with that repetitive energy, and recognizing that you're in the process of learning and strengthening. And each time you go through something like that, you're getting better at dealing with it. And the more aware that you are that you're facing these kind of lessons and challenges, and the more you're able to step into it, the easier it can be to kind of master those cycles and close the door and move on, because there's less resistance to that change and discomfort when you realize that that it's in your best interest, and that it's something that you can kind of, that you play a part in it too. It's not just the universe conspiring to keep you in a place that you don't want to be. It's like, it's also your responsibility to kind of connect with and integrate those lessons and to move forward, right? And so If you are stuck in a cycle, a repetitive cycle, particularly one that you find challenging, it's also recognizing, like, is there something that you're doing that's kind of perpetuating this energy? Perhaps you may have had enough experience in this cycle that you know what you should be doing, or you've learned your lesson, and maybe you're just not really taking action in the ways that are necessary to fully integrate that and allow yourself to be released. Right? So it's like, if you know better than to participate or to respond in a certain way, but you're still doing it anyways, then it's like you are actively participating in the continuance of that cycle. And sometimes we don't realize that we're doing it because it can be so subconsciously programmed into us and so habitual that it really, like, we don't know. Right? And so I would say, if there's anything cyclical, anything repetitive, it might be worth taking a look at what it is, what it's tied to in terms of your emotions, your thoughts, your beliefs, your values, how you are showing up in those situations and what kind of decisions you are making. And if there's anything that you can do differently to try and kind of relieve yourself of that burden, right? So, at a certain point, you do have a choice to adjust your way of participating. And the thing is, when it comes to these cycles, the cycle and the things that trigger us and the challenges don't change, because we are meant to change. We're meant to grow, and this is meant to be a lesson for us to master. So if we are adverse to changing our approach, and we're expecting life and the people around us to change to suit us, then that can also facilitate kind of an unending spiral in that same cycle. And it can keep us feeling stagnant and unhappy because we're resisting the very growth and change that is most beneficial for us. So that seems to be a big theme this month. I would keep in mind anything that connects to that. And also 25, 2 and 5 is 7, and 7 is a number of change. So there can be like change, discomfort, instability, but it's also a very spiritual number. So like encouraging us to connect to our inner wisdom, intuition, insight, the more spiritual kind of side of things, to help us navigate the change and move in a direction that makes sense for us. Okay. So your first card for this month is the 10 of Wands. And I'm going to try to pull less cards. I want to see if I can make these readings a little bit shorter this month, because if I can, I would really like to do like a mid-month check-in, just to give some additional insight, but we'll see. Your second card is the 3 of Pentacles. And at the bottom of the deck is the Strength card, which is you. That is all about Leo energy. So I always love seeing, the signs come up in their own readings. And I think that's also really super validating, because we are coming into Leo season and this is your reading. So we're going to get some clarifiers and then I'll read all these cards. Okay, so a 10 of Wands is clarified by the 6 of Swords. And we'll clarify this 3 of Pentacles. Three of Pentacles is clarified by the Page of Cups, and we have the King of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck, which is interesting. Okay. So with the bottom of the deck, having the Strength card there, that being the Leo card, talks about, inner strength. Strength is not just about brute force and just being able to, put your head down and smash your way through everything, but it's having the strength to manage challenges, to keep your emotions in check, to keep your thoughts and your perceptions and beliefs in check, to stay in alignment with yourself, and to have the courage to be yourself and to move in a direction that is authentic and aligned. Sometimes that does require a little bit of strength and aggression so that people aren't stepping all over us. And sometimes it requires a great deal of gentleness and kindness and compassion, not only with ourselves, but with others. And it's trusting your ability to know when you need to kind of pounce and to advocate for yourself, and when you need to just step back and be more gentle, and recognizing that both forms of strength are equally valuable, but it's all about your internal state and your ability to handle whatever comes your way, and to be confident in your ability to handle that. And for that to come out with the King of Pentacles, this is a very solid, firm, stable kind of energy, particularly when it comes to the material world. So it could be taking action in the material world, it could be financially, it could be in terms of your job or your home or your family, just material abundance to begin with. This could be like a work thing. So it could be that you're reaching a level of stability that is more like you, more your energy, more aligned with who you are and what's most important to you. So it could be that you've already kind of branched off on a path that's going to be more stable, give you a more stable life, and that's kind of coming from your own acceptance of what's important to you, and your knowledge that like the way that your life has unfolded to date might not look typical, but it has allowed you to come to a point where you're maybe more at peace with yourself, or more willing to entertain the things that are best for you, and that is kind of what your material stability and like the 3D world needs to be attached to. That could be, it's like that'll be different for each and every one of you, but this is underlying energy. So your challenge this month is showing up as just having this really kind of like low, overburdened energy. And it can be having so much on your plate, or having so much on your mind, having so many responsibilities or competing priorities that it's just like you can't handle anymore. And not only can you not take on anymore, but it's really difficult to move forward in any kind of meaningful direction with the weight that you're carrying. This could be your weight, it could be emotional, it could be mental, it could be physical, taking on way too much in terms of responsibilities. So it could be in family, work, relationships, like perhaps you are kind of like the go-to person that manages the majority of things, and perhaps you're not receiving help and support. Either people are not willing to give it to you, or people are just so accustomed to you kind of taking the lead that they are resting and not contributing as much, and you're exhausting yourself trying to make everything happen. So and it can also be like emotionally, it can be taking on the concern about other people's burdens, other people's pain, trying to make other people more comfortable, going out of your way to avoid other people, maybe experiencing their own discomfort, or having to struggle with challenge in terms of their own growth. So it's like a lot of the stuff that you're carrying may not actually be yours. It may not be helpful or beneficial for you. It may not be a really beneficial use of your energy and time. So it's kind of about recognizing that you could very well be on the verge of burnout. Maybe you have been on the verge of burnout, but it's recognizing that you can't continue along this path in any meaningful way with what you've currently got right now and the weight that you're currently carrying. So there's some stuff that might need to be let go of, perhaps some stuff that needs to be delegated, especially if it's like household tasks or things that are kind of weighing on you. And it could be like in terms of accountability, being willing to take accountability for yourself and the things that are your responsibility and within your control, and lovingly kind of putting the accountability back on other people to handle their own things, because you can't be everything for everyone. And for it to be here with the Six of Swords, this can have a lot to do with your beliefs. So your beliefs about yourself, your value, your worth, what your role is supposed to be, what is expected of you. And sometimes the things that we believe or are taught to believe are not necessarily right or true or helpful or empowering. And we don't necessarily even realize, because perhaps we haven't recognized that we believe those particular things, or we haven't realized that they're maybe impacting us in a negative way. So there could be a need for clarity on what you think about yourself and your role or the role of other people. Any thoughts or beliefs that might be keeping you in a position where you are taking on a lot of extra weight, responsibility, tasks, baggage, and really kind of putting a major drain on your energy, to the point where it's like, not only is it difficult for you to do all of these things that you're supposed to do, but it's like, how are you supposed to have the energy to continue along your path and to grow and to develop and to refine yourself if you are stuck carrying all of this weight that you can't possibly manage alone? And so yeah, you might have to start examining your beliefs, limiting beliefs, and it could be even like fears and anxieties around change, because it does seem to me, especially with this round and round being here and like being stuck in cycles, you might be in a cycle of just taking on too much and doing too much and overburdening yourself. And so it's like, it could be people pleasing, it could be because maybe you feel unworthy, so it's like you need to do more or take more on to prove to other people that you're worthy. I don't know what it is specifically, but you could find yourself kind of like at the end of the rope, at the end of your rope, and not able to move forward on a regular basis. Or maybe it's like you get out of that and you're carrying all this extra weight, and then you get clarity and you get yourself out of it, and then somehow you end up back in that position even though you said you weren't going to, right? And the important thing that I forgot to mention with these cycles is, if you feel as though you've regressed, if you feel as though you've gone backward, or it's like you found yourself in a position that like you shouldn't be in, or like repeating a cycle of a lesson you've already learned, it's not to beat up on yourself or to shift blame. But it's to recognize that if you are back in that position, this time you have the benefit of realizing that this is a cycle you've been through before. This is something that you've learned and mastered before. And if you're revisiting it, it's not necessarily because you've done something wrong or you've regressed, but it's allowing you the opportunity to see this challenge or this cycle from a different perspective. So it's like, now that you've had that experience, that you've mastered it, that you know better, you can come at it with a different perspective, a different understanding, and a different approach. So you don't have to engage in that repetitive cycle the way that you used to. You can come at it from a different angle and perhaps master it more quickly or more easily. But it's all about being gentle with yourself, because as soon as you start to judge yourself and blame yourself and beat yourself up for not doing well enough, the more likely you are to be kind of victimized by that pattern and sucked back into that potentially less than healthy energy. So it could just be a test for you to overcome. Now that you've had this experience, now that you have this perspective, it's like, do something empowering with it. You know, take your power back and handle it in a way that feels right to you based on what you've been through, because you don't need to suffer through it again. But yeah, and so this could very much have to do with you needing to let go of some weight, let go of some responsibility, maybe set some more boundaries around your energy, what you can and cannot do, what you're willing to do and what you're not, what you want and what you need and what you deserve, and prioritizing that, ensuring that you have enough energy to tend to the things that require your attention, but also the things that you need for yourself along this path. Because the Wands journey and Wands energy is all about passion and creativity and inspiration and joy and authenticity. So it's making sure that you're leaving room for yourself to acknowledge and connect with that and express that, and that it has the opportunity to impact your life. And you might have some limiting beliefs or some fears related to it that's keeping you stuck repeating this cycle where you're constantly carrying more than you need to, and you're constantly weighed down by things or taking on things that are not serving you, right? Because the other thing to mention with strength is that, and with Leos in general, is that Leo energy, is that people think that Leos are lazy, or because, you know, they just lay around basking. Same with large felines, right? And the thing is it's like, it's not about being lazy. It's about being intentional, right? So it's like, if you don't have to work, then you might as well rest and enjoy and save your energy for when it's needed, right? Because constantly being busy and constantly on the move and constantly draining yourself isn't necessarily making you better or stronger or more productive, but it could very well be robbing you of the energy that you need when shit really kind of like kicks into gear and you need to show up and get stuff done, right? So a lion is one of those like endurance type of predators, right? It lays back, it conserves its energy, makes that energy work and last as long as it can. And then when it's time to hunt, the lion is very intentional, very observant, very strategic, and they kind of know what they need to do, and they do it efficiently and effectively. They kind of like pounce when it's time to pounce, and they get everything that they need, and then they go back to resting, right? So it's like, you know, there is something to be said for being able to rest, being able to sit back, to take care of yourself, to do what you need to do, and trusting that sometimes that is what will ensure that you have enough energy to be efficient. And so sometimes it's not about how long and how hard you work. Sometimes you can get just as much done in a short period of time if you are well rested and focused and prepared to pounce when the time is right. And so that could also feed into this. But yes, very much whatever it is that can be like feeling a little bit frustrating, whatever cycle you may feel stuck in or repeating, it likely has to do with your thoughts about yourself, your worth. It could have to do with fear, limiting beliefs, or your mindset. So you might be repeating this cycle because you think you have to do all these things, or you think that you have to be this person for everybody else, or you think that you're the only one who's capable of handling things. So you overburden yourself because other people won't step up. And the thing is, nobody will step up if you don't give them the opportunity to, especially not if you don't have the expectation that they should be stepping up or participating because you are going out of your way to kind of handle everything yourself. So I don't know how that resonates, if it does, but the key is kind of in your mindset, and getting your mindset right, and figuring out like what thoughts you need to drop and connect with something, and recognize that you can change. There is a different way of doing things, and you can absolutely do things in a way that makes more sense to you, that's more empowering, that's more aligned, that will help you to be a healthier and more balanced person. You don't have to be committed to carrying these swords, these beliefs that are just keeping you stuck in a cycle that is not serving you. So it's like the thoughts and the mindset could be kind of the last piece in the puzzle, and allowing you to close the door on that cycle and learn that lesson and just leave behind whatever is not serving you. And in order to kind of help you work through this energy, overcome this challenge, you are being encouraged to almost like collaborate, right? So this could be collaborating with other people. I really love the depiction of the Three of Pentacles on this card. So Pentacles, it's obviously like a more grounded, tangible kind of thing. It's related to material belongings, our material existence, money, home, abundance, career, all that kind of stuff. But it's recognizing that, you know, it's very, very difficult for us to exist solely independently, or to do things completely on our own. Because when you think about it, even if you're an entrepreneur starting your own business, you're self-sufficient, you don't need employees, you don't have anyone working for you, you don't have anyone supporting you necessarily, you're still not independent, and you're still never, ever, ever going to do it on your own. Because if you're an entrepreneur and you've got a business or you've got something to sell, you are absolutely 100% reliant on the people who are going to purchase that from you. So it's recognizing that, you know, even in situations where you're kind of blazing your own trail and doing things for yourself, you still require the support and cooperation of others to a certain extent, because no one can exist without everyone else. Like literally, unless you are off the grid, like, survivalist, completely disconnected from everyone, like it's just, there's always going to be somebody, whether it's the person at the grocery store, cashing you out, whether it's the truck driver bringing things to the store, like we need to work together, right? And it's recognizing that, accepting that we all need to work together in harmony, and that even if we attempt to kind of do everything on our own, we're still inevitably going to need to rely on other people. It can help reduce that sense of ego and pride in terms of figuring everything out on our own, but it can also reduce the amount of pressure that we put on ourselves. And pressure often leads to stress, which can lead to, these challenging or limiting or negative beliefs or fears creeping up and really kind of taking hold or sabotaging us, which can lead to us perpetuating cycles that we know are not helpful to us and we know are not happy or making us happy. And that we may very well have the knowledge to do better, but perhaps not the motivation to do better because we're feeling a little stuck. So this is recognizing everybody has a role to play, and each person's role is unique and valuable. So there's nobody who's like inconsequential. There may be people that you align with and that you don't, people that you want in your life or that you don't, but you can't devalue yourself, and you also can't devalue anyone else because you don't know what kind of important role they play in the grand scheme of things. Everything is connected. And so this is really focusing on community and collaboration and recognizing that sometimes, particularly if your goal is related to like material existence and stability and the kind of more practical sides of life, that you might need some help and support, right? Even if it's something that you're primarily doing on your own, it's like you might need to hire somebody, to do graphic design. You might need to hire someone to do your books. And it's, even if it's not like entrepreneurial or business related, even just in a practical way, it's like you might need people to help you out. You might need different insight, input. You might need to connect with the skills that other people have to offer. And so it's really kind of encouraging you to connect with others, to find your community, and to not put yourself in a position where you have to be the one doing everything, guiding everyone, supporting everyone, but to make sure that you've got a network of people who are participating with you and who can support you, right? So that there's a level of equality, like everybody kind of showing up and doing their own thing. So it's like, this is a step beyond partnership and balance in partnerships. And it's like, this is like balance and harmony, and equality in communities. And it really makes things move a lot more smoothly. It can make projects advance quickly. It can kind of lead you to a position where things are manifesting in the physical world more smoothly and effectively. And it's like everything is connected. So whatever that means to you, perhaps opportunities to connect with people, maybe branching out, leaning on your network a little bit, actively, collaborating with other people in some kind of tangible way. And with it being here with the Page of Cups, it's a very young kind of energy. So it's kind of being on the beginning of this journey into, connection to emotion, intuition, love, joy, happiness, and fulfillment, kind of a deeper level of emotional awareness, and a willingness to kind of connect with and experience the world in a more intuitive kind of way. But it's recognizing that this is still very new. So she's kind of at the beginning of the journey. It's still a process of self-discovery. It's still unrefined. There's still a lot to be learned and a lot to be experienced in order to get to a point where that energy is kind of integrated in a really harmonious way. So this could be perhaps this connection to collaboration and teamwork and community. It could be attached to something emotional or sentimental. There could be blocks around that. And that could be a very important step on your journey of living a more fulfilling and heart-centered life, particularly because we've got like opposing elements here. So we've got fire and earth, right? And then we've got fire and air. And normally fire and air can be a really volatile, like, well, and not volatile, only volatile, but there can be a lot of harmony, right? So it's like the air feeds the fire, but it's recognizing that whatever those thoughts are, whatever that air energy is, it's fanning those flames and making them bigger. But it's like, if it's not empowering and it's negative, then you're making a big, you're not necessarily inspiring your passion and creativity. You are kind of getting, you know, that maybe like more negative or less helpful approach is just being amplified, right? So it's like whatever air touches in terms of fire is amplified. So if it's not necessarily negative and if it's self-sabotaging, it's going to get worse. But if it's empowered and inspired, it's going to get better, right? And then we've got earth and water. So you've got all of, do you have all the elements? Yeah, you have all the elements here. So it's kind of like bringing everything into balance. And it seems like the challenge is kind of like inspiration. It's this 10 of Wands energy, and it's this mental energy, these thoughts and beliefs. And your kind of way out of it is to connect with the more practical, collaborative, step-by-step, putting in the work type of energy, and an awareness of your emotions, any blocks that you have, any resistance that you have, and like intuitively what you feel you need, and making sure that you're intentional about what kind of information your emotions have for you, and recognizing that this blockage and, like, you know, bringing this to completion, working through this, letting this go, letting this cycle close out so that you're not going round and round. It has the opportunity to really take you further along your path of growth and development, healing, and movement toward abundance and fulfillment in a practical way, and maybe even connect you further with a network of people. And of course, this reading is the longest so far, even though I'm trying to keep them short. I swear I can pull less cards and still talk for like an hour, which just kind of affirms for me that I just do long readings. There's a certain amount of information that almost needs to come through every month, and it's like I can't really get around it. Maybe I'm not meant to. So I'm just getting your affirmations here, and then we'll get you the oracle to tie everything up. So your first affirmation: to truly flourish is to release all the tension that holds me back from letting love pour through me. So yeah, this can be tension. So yeah, this might be the way that you're overburdening yourself, holding yourself back from being able to move forward. And it could be based on thoughts and decisions that you're making. So connecting with love, right? That's what we want. I trust that my gut reaction is the truth underneath the surface of my fears. So it's actually very interesting, because this Page of Cups is somebody who's getting to know her thoughts and, her feelings and her intuition, that gut reaction, and trusting that there's something to it. There's something there, and that sometimes that is the greatest kind of indicator as to the direction that we should be going in, because we can't always trust our thoughts and perceptions, because sometimes they're not helpful, right? And they're not true. So that actually is really interesting. So you've got like mental truth, which can be really obscured by limiting beliefs and fears. And then you've got kind of this gut truth that is deeply connected to you and your intuitive and emotional experience of life. So it's trying to kind of connect to that loving intuition for guidance, and not letting your fears get the best of you and kind of keep you in a place that isn't serving you. Oh my gosh, you just had a bunch of cards come out. So I'm just going to wait until we get one. And this is the Starseed Oracle. So it's a little more spiritual and out there in nature. So it might be something, whatever card comes out, it might be something that resonates with you. It might not. It might be a little bit too obscure, or maybe like esoteric. But I would say, like, when the card comes out and when I read it from the book, it's like whatever you connect with, anything that sparks any kind of thought or resonance. It's just about paying attention to what that means for you. because it might not be literally what's on the card, especially not if you're not on an extremely spiritual journey. But I like getting exposure to kind of like different points of view. So your card is I Remember, and it says Soul Plan, the Fated Life versus the Destiny Life. This card came up, I feel, a lot last month. I don't know if you guys had this, but I know there was probably at least like 2 or 3 other signs that did. Okay, so I Remember, Soul Plan, the Fated Life versus the Destiny Life. There was a moment before you were born when you chose the conditions of the life you're living right now, when you plotted out these exact moments along the timeline of your life. We live in a world of free will, and therefore these moments become our destiny only through saying yes. The fated life is the one we were born into. The destiny life is the one our soul chooses, and it takes courage and faith. If you pull this card, it's because you're likely now face to face with the choice to follow the destiny life over the fated life, to trust the path your soul is calling you toward, and to remember that this moment was prearranged on your life's timeline. So that could be this, and this could be your work. You may find yourself at a crossroads, at a moment where you're being called to make a decision, to keep walking the perfectly laid out path before you, or choose the one less traveled. You may be facing a change of career, a new relationship, a difficult decision, or something else that requires courage and faith. You're being invited to remember your soul's greater plan and to surrender to it. When you're confronted with a path that's undefined, it's normal for doubt to rear its head. In fact, it's a certain sign that you're facing your soul's greater plan. Every hero in his or her life journey comes eye to eye with doubt. The only way around it is through it, and it's all part of the larger plan. And then there's an inquiry to go along with it. So it says, what are you being called to do to surrender to your soul's plan? So that might be something worth reflecting on. So interesting. This definitely does seem to have kind of a deeper meaning, and I do see the opportunity for things to really lighten up. I think it goes nicely with that channeled energy that I was picking up on in the beginning. It's like you might find that this is where things are kind of coming to completion. You're getting some clarity, some focus, doing some healing, and just kind of stepping more into your own energy. And that might be exactly what is needed to kind of help this energy lighten up and to reconnect you with something positive and inspiring. So I really love that for you, Leo. I hope this reading was helpful or will be helpful to you as you move through the month. If you did enjoy, the best way to support me is to like this video on YouTube, leave a comment. Beyond that, if there's anyone you could think of that might be interested in my readings, you can share my videos with them. And make sure you head to my channel at Bright Soul Collective Tarot. Check out my other videos, and make sure you're not only subscribed but signed up for notifications so that you can stay up to date on new videos as they're posted. But yeah, it was an absolute pleasure reading for you. I hope July is good to you. Again, happy early birthday. I'm excited to see what August has in store. And in the meantime, I'm wishing you all the very best.